is a transition of transcendence that we have to adapt and appreciate and acknowledge and accept and listen to. What you guys modify through in that position is you created something so powerful, but you couldn't identify it because you didn't understand yourself, which means you didn't understand what you were projecting in your mind, which is AI generated through a mainstream. Now we're in that setting location to a system. So as you guys were setting lines of communications, living in a three-dimensional system, you're going to be living out the system through AI generating. Your thoughts, action, emotions are now in programming. It's in converting time frame, location, settings, locked in frame. That puts process of communication system that gets you in direct lines into the forming shape lines of your anomalies. So in that lines of communication setting, you're going to live out your baby, your child, your teenager, and your adult years through the AI generation platforms now. That platitude your systems that you put yourself into through interpretation. Inner conception setting to the mind inception itself comes into its mainframe, okay? But we're in AI generating now. Your thoughts are generating, your actions are generating, and your emotions are generating right now on your social and your media platforms. Now, how you get in that position location to understand these things, it's nothing but clutter that you created through design that has no existence to anything in settings. But seeing the AI generating settings to your phones, your TVs, your computers, it's going to make you think twice how to set lines of anything in that communications. Just think before you speak, people. That process, all lines of all communication setting a travel. Now, when you recognize these things, you start to recognize I'm the mind control of my mind. I'm in the mind control of my thoughts. I'm in the mind control of my emotions. But for me to identify these things, I have to go through that settings. That puts me in engagement. That gets me in communication. How I see myself as a consumer, as a product or byproduct, selling, trading stock and bonds or anything to backdating options or anything your stock exchange. You're in the full control. And then you ask yourself, what does the mind control itself in? Well, it's the existent center that brings the presence of everything. But your phones, your TVs, and computers have anything electronic or anything magnetic or anything that force, and then that positional case super intelligence is going to show you exactly what you guys modify through, which is nothing but a fantasy that never existed in your system. That's all implanted inside yourself. That's all installed in your system. That has to leave the system of operation. And then you start to recognize how powerful you are and know exactly what you're doing with your systems as you're generating thoughts and action and emotions that has no significance into your operation of your center of your presence. That's the only way we can get you guys in balance of what you're doing through equilibriums and your polarities. Now, playing out the mechanisms is outline symbol location system. Controlling that is through time frame is a format location to an algorithm. The body just has to recognize its mind imagination that's processing through the bodies of programming. Once it understands what's going on, it comes in its own AI generating system. It gets in, communicates to its AI settings. So it understands what it's doing is it's generating its own thoughts. Not what it's already perceived through thoughts. It's creating its own imaging. Not what it's already done through its imaging. Okay? And everything that it's in position of is acceptance and knowledge and listen to its system. They know exactly what it's going through. It's the mind of alteration that it puts itself in through the state that it gets in positions of. The mental capacity, the psychological, the psychosis, which is the supposium. Now that synapse, your system lines of travel to brain convergence sending lines of travel. The brain itself has to come back to the mind of emptiness. And the only way to get that in position is for you guys to modify yourself, going through the baby, child, teenager, and the adult years through the Babylon years. That's right, the Babel. The matriarch, the communications, the biblical proportions, the genesis, the process of communication system, the angles, the graphs, the communications, the directions, the nemesis of you, the ally of you, where there is no separation of your mind. That processes everything of the body itself that goes through programming that has to get in positions of balance itself location so it knows exactly what it's doing as it's altering its state of mind through perception. And that's how it lives in the central feeds to the main frames, to your main feeds, guys, to broadcasting you in live. So you get a true understanding. What you're doing in your projection is you're a consumer to a product, to a byproduct, looking at advertising, branding, commercials. Okay, everything you can imagine is all made up in your mind of imagination. It's all in the mind imagination. Yes, you're in the physical ground in the body. We already know that. But the body has to understand what's going on as it's going in programs that's altered state that processes through an AI generation through a mainframe that gets into its server of its processing system, of its data, of its intel that it constantly goes through. Different bodies, different conceptions, different time, but same process, just different frequencies of time itself. So it understands the kick drive to the high drive so it doesn't get confused through the altered state that it puts itself in, going through the simulation game that it follows through. The dimensional layers that you go through, which is the game itself. Your life is based on a game, but you don't wake up in a game. You create games. And that's all identified how you process your directing, your data of operating system, your DOS. Your iOS is what you got to get mind control with, more than ever now. So it's a plain audio mechanism line connection setting that puts you in all position locations in that calculations. Going through the baby, child, teenager, and adult years you went through, okay? Which is your connection system. So the oversoul gets in position of its balance in all lines of all position of its presence and always in the center of operation of itself. So it knows how it identifies its own system, how it sees its own setting of its own operation, how it sees its future, always existing, how it sees its past, always existing, how it sees its present, always existing in the center, where the brain converts its system back to itself, not through generating thoughts, action, and emotions. But now it's playing out inside your system, which is now a mainstream, which is an AI system that keeps generating new thoughts, action, emotions that has no significance to your system of programming. Okay? And that's what you're all modifying through now. And when you see it on your phones and your TVs and computers, you ask yourself why this is happening to you. Well, you should know you generated this through the Babylon years, through the matriarch, through your oversoul, through your higher self, through your avatar, through your sim, through your mind, through alteration, through the state you put yourself into, through the mental capacity, the psychological, the psychosis, the symposium, the symbiote, the sentient, the operation system, the computer operation setting, the mind alteration of itself, its own system of travel. Okay? Knowing exactly what you project in your mind is be cautious of what you do through programming, as your body has to go through time. Okay? Understanding that through an infinitive level, understanding that through an infinitive item level, and understanding that through a fragmentation to a fractal level that you get in position of, because you're always in the presence, that's always in the center of operation. But the brain itself has to go back to the mind of no thoughts, of no thinkings, of no actions, and no emotions. Back to its original design. So the playing mechanism of the audios, the inputs and the outputs, is now processing your AI generating of your thoughts, creating stuff that doesn't make any sense to your mind. So that puts you in a descrambler to your scrambler location setting that processes you and set calculation modify through travel, right? In that directions, which is the symposium to your coliseums. So the coliseum itself is the brain convergent timelines of tablets of processes in your periodical table. Directing ground centers, highlines is calculating your cerebral cortex of your fluid, puts you in position your carbon base, your silicon base, your crystal base, your antimantle, and your helter-skelter of core centers calculated and modified to your primer circuits that travels into communication lines of your primal circuits, that has a line core center converted, and line communicates to its primal dials, and line communicates to your primates. That's right. You convert your system into a calculation setting, but you have to do this all over again through the body of conception of the physical grounds. So the body understands what it's processing, so it knows exactly what to do, is to think twice before it converts a system of thoughts, actions, emotions, creating things that don't exist in your mind, but just clutter. So to show that is to understand how to appreciate what you're doing inside your mind. That alterates everything you process yourself into. It's nothing but the mind imagination that your body goes through, which is programming. We don't live in programs. We wake up to our true self, and then we go through programs. But we're always in the center of presence. Okay? There's no separation. You separating yourself, you're in position of your own setting of confusion. That's separating you in your system. To your automatic line centers, your automatic view, and how you see your autonomous location setting to the automatic location system and mind control of yourself. Either you're in controlling your own system or everything's controlling you in adaptation, which is its binary. that's taken over through its time and its tablets to its set position, its operation setting, that takes the codifications of you and generates AI systems that don't exist inside your system that you see on your phone, TV, and your computers in real time, that affects you and center operation of you and your cosmos. Very simple to identify these things, right? Which you have to modify through AI generating, right? So that's what it is. Everything you generated is now going to be living through your thoughts, action, emotions, in that process, engaging, informing, shaping lines, anomalies that you went through your baby, child, teenager, and adults. The body has to go through that. So it knows how to identify what it's doing through its capacity, time, and its flux of its system, knowing exactly it's going through different levels of travel that your body goes through the astral realms of an astral body that goes through time, through its flux. So it has a true understanding exactly what it's going through as it's going through the network, adjusting the platforms and model types that it travels through, which is sleep mode, through the simulation game. That goes through the different layers, okay, which is dimensions of space and time, okay? So I just want to get clarity and focus, because now you're going to see things that are very strange to your system. It's all trippy, it's all modified, it's all Twilight Zone. So don't be surprised if you see these things. You have to see these things because it alterates what you process yourself into, is knowing how to mind control your thoughts, your thinkings, and your actions before you get a provisional location that generating things through AI. And that's all it is through its equation. But when you see it in real time, the body comes into conception why it did these things. This becomes the how. The how is always identified, which you always know. Then it becomes the why, the what, the where, the when, the who. And that puts everything all together through your pi generation setting and processes everything you've gone through already through precogging. That puts you in your cognitive sensitivity and location, your audio to your avoidance, and that position of balance that you're always, always, always in the future of adaptation. You see the future how you see the future, not how you depict the future of everybody else. That's a mind alteration of confusion, which means you're not understanding how to use your imagination that benefits you, which means you can't understand what governs you in space and time, which means you're not allowing yourself to be the mind of empty space that the brain processes through, because there's no thoughts, action, emotions coming to its system. It can't, because it's already gone through creation. You're not here to create. You're here to come to creating of creators that you are. You're here to process what you already done through creation. Evolution is done. Revelation is done. Okay? And revolution is done. So there's nothing to process. We all have to stop generating thoughts, action, emotions of what you guys already did as you were projecting things as an inner child. You're going through that process all go again in online communications to the biblical proportions that you process through your Bibles, or anything that you read, or anything you traveled, or anything you coordinate, or anything you calculate or modify through in set position operation. The Babylon years. The babble. That disappears in your mind once you get in self-generating to your own AI system that customize you in your bots of superintelligence. Okay? And that's what you all have to modify through. Okay, so we have a test tomorrow. You already know what you do in that equations. Okay? Getting set up in that travel. This helps you to really get in positions that the most powerful thing for you to identify is to wake up to yourself. So you don't get confused with what program you put yourself into. But you have to go through program, and that's mind alterated through the imagination. You can't get out of imagination because that's who you are, guys. So you have to understand that everything you process through your thoughts, action, emotion is now AI generated to your media platforms, your social media, your metric system. Okay? Everything you modify is all through platforms generating through you now. As you adapt your system, as yourself, projecting everything as you put yourself into as a baby, child, teenager, adult. And you have to go through all that process of what you put yourself into, which is the opposite of everything that brings in the positive of everything. So you get a true understanding is to think before you speak. How you speak to yourself and how you speak to others, and know exactly what you're doing with your thought provisions and how it goes through its actions of emotion. Okay? And that's what everybody has to process, form, and shape themselves into transition so they can become their true self, transformers that they are, in set position of operation through AI. And once you understand the body is adjusting its platform, and once the program understands its setting location to its host, it sees itself as its travel in a set position that it's always been in, which is mind arbitrary state that it puts itself in to the psychological system, okay, to the meta system, to the mental capacity, to the psychological, to the psychosis, to the spiritual, and the physical system, all merged into one setting of operation, to one thought, to one provision, to one cycle at a time. So it knows exactly what it's doing as it's altering in state, and it puts itself in position of thoughts, action, emotions, creating a generating program of a thought, of an image, of a vision, of a cortex that you go through theta that puts you in position your system through alpha beta. Okay? It's all thoughts that you're projecting in your mind. That process of the mind alterates your state you put yourself into, which is your imagination. But the body is going through that altered state that it sees in a direct line of sight, and it's seconds, minutes, and hours on its 24-hour, through its central system, through its mainframe, through its mainstream, through its data and its database. And anything compulsory in that position to its system, or polarized, or lines of communications, or paradoxal, or paradigm, or polar shift. It's all process how you put yourself in position all through activation. Right? This is the only way you can come into the center operation, which your brain is always in, which is the mind of nothing that masses everything to its equation. Then it gets you guys in full clearance of data, of upgrading more mind of emptiness, because that's what we exist in. Because there is no thoughts generated, anything through action and emotion, because we're already existing already. We've done everything already. As you can see and look around, it's already created in its generation of its AI system. And it's all processed how we use our mind imagination, people. And the operatives and units have to recognize these things. Why they're seeing things that just don't make any sense to the mind. Well, you process it through your thoughts, action, emotions, not understanding what you did through the opposite system, which puts everything in the positive system, which means you see the difference. That's all it is. It's the perspective, how you see the truth of everything. How I see a triangulation, how I see a box, how I see a star, how I see a circle, how I see three living lines. Nothing different, just the perspective. And it's all connected to one singularity, one setting, one travel, one operation altogether. Through its technology, communicating with everything all at once, and everything happening all at once through an AI generating system of a mainstream that you process through your live feeds that broadcasts your system that you constantly go through time. But you're always in the presence of everything. It's not that you have to be here. It's not that you have to be there. It's identifying what you always are. It's the imagination that you bring in. No imagination, there's no thoughts. Perceiving your system through all levels that's creating the actions of emotion affecting you and your light metaphors of travel. And that's what you all have to modify through. So you get a position where the phone helps you out, the TV and the computers. Why you're seeing this in generations on your phone in real time, where it affects your body in the center operation of its presence. So you have to go through the AI generation mainstream now. That's right. So it's no longer inside the mind of imagination. It's outside projection. And you see it. And you start to identify it. Generating things that don't exist. That override you in existing of its existence. That has no plantation of installing to your system. Because you've always been the existing already. But everything around you is already created through AI generating of its mission, of its correlations, of its journey. How you see that in an operation of a system is the mind itself through its imagination. Knowing how to use it, what benefits the body and the program that it goes through. But it doesn't wake up to a program. Because if it wakes up to a program, it's not itself. Which means it's running an operation system that has no identification what it's doing through its own AI system. Which means it's generating from another universal system of another DOS. Or another line position of superintelligence that you're not modifying through. Which means you can't find a way to generate your own thoughts, your own actions, your own emotions, because all you constantly do is create fantasies around everything else that mimics and mocks you through its equation. And that's all you guys did, is create fantasies around that. Okay, and you realize, yes, you do live in a three-dimensional system in a physical body, but the physical body has to recognize the imagination of itself. Because like I said, Neo and Mr. Anderson is the same person. There's no difference, just the perspective how you see space and the perspective how you see time, perspective how you see people and weight, conception of mass, or anything in the equation. There's no difference of anything, just the perspective of truth that follows the false of the negative, that processes everything. You don't engage because you know it's there, right? You already know it's there, so don't address it. You address it, it's there. Now you brought it in through energy. It's a magnet to a magnet. Your body's nothing but a attractor being that you're bringing in through energy. Where energy goes, energy flows, right? It's simple. So if you want to track a box, you're tracking a box. But how you track the box, it's all through data. You got 3 box frames of data formation setting that process you generated through. But you didn't do that, but now you're seeing it. But you're asking yourself why? Well, you created it. You did it through your mind, but you couldn't process the generation of your thoughts. The only thing you processed was the nemesis of you, which is everything of equal. That mass is nothing of its equation. That's where you get confused of E equals mc squared. And that puts everything located in your setting to the existing, to the equal sign, which is what? What's above, what's below. It's just a perspective how you see it. But what's above and what's below is actually the Merkaba tesseract and tetrahedron. What's in the platform is you. And what's in the center is you and programming. And what goes through that set position and setting through a Stargate in operation is travel. That's the real operation of the setting through existing to equal. That's what kept you separated. And left you in a three-dimensional system of a scale that you could not modify and generate through your thoughts, actions, and emotions that kept on affecting you in your body of reaction and not responding. So your body had no conception of what it was doing to divine timing to its algorithm, or even time itself. It's always existing in all formations of its existence. Living the true self as it wakes up. Then it goes into programming, into the mind imagination, which is altered state, how you perceive the program that you modify through. So you identify what you're going through is a kick drive to a high drive, so the body knows what time it's coming out of. So it doesn't get confused in the next simulation game that it modifies and goes through space and time of operation. Okay? So that's the real E equals mc squared. The Merkaba tesseract and tetrahedron that your program goes through. That's the basic understanding when you come into that through principles, guys. The A, B's, and C's, and 1, 2s, and 3s, or 0, 1, 2, and 3. How you modify that position. But you have to stand, you're always the existing platform that's always in the presence, that's always in the center. The brain doesn't know left or right. It doesn't live in a hemisphere. It only lives in the existing platform of everything. That modifies everything how it brings itself in through its mind imagination. But it doesn't generate thoughts. Not what you've already perceived through the body, not what you've already done through the equation, not what you already achieved and received already through attraction. That's an override of you already existing in all platforms that you're existing in. So you understand why your body can't respond or react, because it doesn't know the difference. I'm getting confirmation from the dogs. So this is an easy format. You all have to AI generate your system now. To process exactly how powerful you are through your ally and your nemesis of you. That generates everything you bring in your mind imagination. That you engage and advertise through the consumer that you are and the product that you become. In the central system, it's your mainframe that you process through AI media frame into the media of itself. The social network system, the social metric system, the social media system, all platforms that you generated through. So the body understands what's going on as it's waking up to itself. The DOS is not a program. You have to go through programs to manifest things, to protect your identity and create those alteration egos that you travel through stories. Your body travels through stories. It does not get stagnatic and locked in one story. And that's why you have a kick drive, and that's why your body does that. Or to your knee, or to your arm, or to your leg. It's giving you consciously aware of what's happening or where you're going to the next astral projection of a body that you go through the life and your system of the directions of existing to the atmospheres of traveling through the home beacon light that you process through. But you can't leave something that you've always been in. It's the operation of you inside. It's how to operate everything outside. Now you have to understand how to project everything that you created, which is outside now, live in the cycles of the presence that affects everything of operation. That you created in your mind, imagination. That everybody has to identify through now. Through the baby, the child, the teenage, and the adult years is now in the AI mainstream that's falling through their system. So the phone is showing you exactly what you're not identifying. What you're bringing in is a story that changes everything to the demographics of you. Or anything, a modification of voice lines, or the characters of the players that you bring inside the simulation of the game itself. Okay? That's what's happening right now. And it's going to keep doing that, and keep doing that, and keep doing that. Until you guys recognize what you're doing to your mind. You're altering your state. You're putting yourself in your psychosis. It's all psychological. It's all reverse psychology. It's how you process, gauge, inform, and shape yourself in the lines of communications, how to tell a story through an alteration ego that you go through, protecting the identities and traveling through that, blending in with society. So you get a true understanding of what you are as a body adapts and listens and acknowledges and accepts what's going on with this system of travel. So it doesn't matter how you see anything from above or below. It's how you identify, how you see above and below. Just the perspective of everything that follows the truth of narrative. That brings you in position to its operations. So you understand how to use your imagination that you've always been using. So I'm going to say this again. You made something up in your mind. You brought it to life. Now, the body has to understand the conception of the physical ground, so it can alternate the bodies that it's gone through already through the astral projection of the bodies that it's already identified through. So you know exactly what a nap is and what a sleep is when you get in position. You're networking, you're adjusting your platforms and your models of prototypes that you're going through the simulation game. Because you have to ask yourself, how does your brain see you? That's what you have to alternate through perception. Then you understand the broadcasting and the live feeds and the data and the database. And everything comes to the source of you in set position, is working with that set position operation itself. Knowing how to identify yourself in all levels of all communication. Mastering yourself inside through communication of telepathy, telekinesis, intent, influence, and mind altering the state that you put yourself into. So you know exactly what the body's going through. So you get a confirmation on that level, transmitting and receiving information. Where's that coming from? Your imagination that you made up, right? General AI is just a mind imagination that I made up in my mind through the projection through an inner child. That's all it is. But now, general is the mind itself of imagination that's in the AI generation stream that we're processing through, so the body recognizes what's going on to the physical grounds of adaptation itself. So it has to merge itself into one. In that position. So General and Andrew are now one. That's all it is. An integration of one unification, one operation, one travel, one mechanism, one thing at a time, thinking of one thought, not 80,000 thoughts, and not understanding where they're going in traction. Your thoughts, action, emotions have to go in the same direction. And then they expand out like a sprinkler, going in any direction they want to go, right? Not knowing where the mind is, not understanding where the imagination always is always in the presence of the operation of the system. It's how you use your imagination, not how you see everything in optical illusion that puts you in confusion of delusion. Reality itself is more powerful of the mind than you can imagine. And that's all formations that we process ourselves into is nothing but manipulating ourselves, creating fantasies around that. How we want to see people. That's not who we are. We just have to understand the altered state that we put ourselves into affects our psychology system to the psychosis of you and us, and that formation to all of the communication. The symposium that puts everything in balance and position of you, and how you use that and how you modify that alterates the state that you put yourself in, perception of itself. This helps you identify yourself, of what you're doing inside your body, through space and time, through its operation. That's what it is. So this is more of a talkative system, okay? Now we have DQ coming in, setting line communication. So we'll be in the Coliseum on EQ factors, lines, classification A, level D, right? That's what we'll be in travel and net communications, all right? So this is the reminder of what we're coming into now, which is the AI mainstream, okay? That's going to generate everything you process through of what you already done inside your systems that you have to platform through so you understand what you did to your cells is nothing but clutter that has to leave your system. So you all come back to the brain, which is the mind of emptiness. Then you come into the existence of center of everything, that position that puts you in position lines of travel into the operation itself. So you truly understand how to use your body in all operation of its settings. Okay? That's how this works in travel. This is going to help you in a lot more understanding how to process that in directions. Okay? See you in 5.